Melbourne mum whose heart shut down after delivering twins has survived thanks to teamwork across hospitals.
Lily had always thought that giving birth to her sweet twins would be the hardest thing she'd ever do. But the discomfort she figured was just part of recovery didn't go away. It stuck around, getting worse each day, and made her wonder if maybe the toughest part wasn't over after all. 3 weeks into being a mom, her body finally gave in. The pain became too much, and she found herself back in the hospital, the same place she'd left smiling and full of joy. But this time, walking through those doors brought a tight knot of fear in her chest. There was an ultrasound waiting for her, something she hadn't expected at all. Lying there in that hospital room, Lily's discomfort grew sharper. Her chest felt tight with worry, especially knowing her babies were at home without her. Her husband, suddenly on his own with 2 newborns, was doing his best. But the dream they'd shared of enjoying these early moments together felt like it was slipping away. What was really going on? In the cold, quiet room, the low hum of the ultrasound machine filled the silence. As the doctors moved the wand over her still sensitive belly, Lily watched their expressions shift. Their eyes widened, their brows knit tighter, and a hush fell over the room. The image on the screen showed something they hadn't expected, something that made them freeze. What had they seen that left them so stunned? The doctor's calm voice suddenly wavered. I'm sorry, he said softly, barely able to meet Lily's eyes. His words felt heavy, like they carried more than just sympathy. Whatever had appeared on that screen wasn't minor. It was serious. And in that moment, Lily knew something was very wrong. Whatever they had discovered, there was no turning back from it now. Just weeks before, Lily had left this very hospital feeling like she was floating. Holding her newborn twins, she felt like the happiest woman alive. But that joy was short-lived. It wasn't long before she realized that something deep inside her wasn't right. As the days went on, the pain only grew. Her body ached constantly and sharp cramps tore through her abdomen. Even walking across the room felt impossible some days. The pain was more than she could hide or ignore. It was keeping her from caring for her babies the way she wanted to. And that's when she knew she couldn't do this alone. Her husband needed to know everything. When Pradeep heard Lily's full story, it hit him hard. He couldn't believe she'd kept something so serious from him. They always told each other everything, at least that's what he thought. The fact that she had gone through all that pain alone made him feel like something had gone really wrong between them. He was stunned by how quickly her health had gone downhill, and he wished she'd spoken up sooner. Once he realized how serious it was, he didn't waste a second. He rushed her to the hospital. It was the right call just in time, too, because things got worse fast. Sitting in the waiting room, Lily's pain became almost too much to bear. Every minute dragged, making it harder for her to stay calm. Hours passed before the doctors finally saw how serious things really were. Her body was at its limit. They ran several urgent tests, and what they found shocked them. An emergency surgery was scheduled right away. There was no room for delay. Her life was at risk. Pradeep's mind was racing. What had caused this? Could the doctors really fix it in time? Would Lily be okay, strong enough to come back home and raise their babies with him? Just thinking about losing her was too much. It felt unreal. Only 3 weeks ago, they'd been celebrating the birth of their twins. The delivery had been rough, but the joy on Lily's face as she held Mia and Elijah made it all worth it. She had told him so herself. Now, pacing the hallway outside the operating room, Pradeep couldn't stop replaying that memory. He refused to believe that those joyful moments were all they'd get. His hands clenched at his sides, a mix of fear and anger bubbling up. How could life be this cruel? After everything, were they really going to be robbed of their chance to be a family? That first week home with the babies had been pure chaos, full of late nights and zero sleep. But Lily didn't seem to mind. She poured herself into caring for Mia and Elijah like nothing else mattered. Slowly they had begun to fall into a rhythm, figuring out what their new life looked like. It was starting to feel like they had things under control until now. But the peace they'd started to build was suddenly broken 3 weeks in. Lily began feeling off. At first, she chalked it up to regular postpartum tiredness. But soon, the pain grew worse than anything she'd felt during labor. It was sharp, constant, and hard to ignore. Deep down, she knew something was wrong. Days blurred into nights, and Lily was overwhelmed by sharp abdominal pain and bouts of vomiting. She finally told Pradeep, who urged her to go to the hospital right away. But Lily hesitated. With 2 tiny babies at home, the idea of being admitted scared her even more than the pain. She didn't want her absence to mess up the care and rhythm they were just beginning to form. Even though she was getting weaker, Lily kept hoping the pain would pass. But each day, it got worse. And eventually, she just couldn't go on. When she could no longer stand or walk without help, she gave in. Pradeep had already been worried sick. He immediately called his parents, who kindly agreed to watch the babies for a few hours. They hoped to be back by dinner time. Lily had even expressed milk just in case, but neither of them knew she wouldn't be coming back that day. As soon as Pradeep's parents arrived, they rushed out. Lily was sweating and barely holding herself up, clutching her stomach with every small movement. Each bump in the road made her wince and cry out in pain. It was like torture. "Slow down," Lily gasped as Pradeep sped toward the hospital. The drive felt endless. Every bump only made it more clear. This wasn't something minor. This could be serious, maybe even life-threatening. Once they got to the hospital, they hurried into the emergency room. But instead of immediate help, they were met with a packed waiting area. People of all ages filled the room, all waiting for care. Lily could barely sit up, but there were no other options. Pradeep's frustration boiled. How could they just leave her like this? Lily lowered herself carefully into the only open chair, her body shaking. Meanwhile, Pradeep checked her in, doing his best to hide his rising panic. The receptionist tried to stay calm, but said the wait could be anywhere from 30 minutes to 3 or 4 hours. Lily turned to him, pleading, "Please do something, Pradeep." But there was nothing he could do, except hold her hand and try to be strong. After about half an hour of unbearable pain, Lily's body gave up. She slipped from her seat and collapsed onto the hospital floor. Things got hazy for Lily after that, but for Pradeep, every second felt burned into his memory. Watching her slump forward, eyes fluttering and rolling back, was terrifying. He shouted for help and finally staff rushed in. Lily was lifted onto a stretcher and wheeled into a room. Pradeep followed closely, afraid to lose sight of her. A nurse noticed his panic and gently reassured him, "We're not taking your wife anywhere without telling you, sir. We'll do everything we can." It helped, but not enough to ease his worry. When Lily woke up, everything felt strange. She looked around, dazed and scared, and even though Pradeep was right there, she kept asking, "Where's my husband? Where's Pradeep?" Her mind was foggy, and his words didn't seem to register. Eventually, she began to understand where she was, but the pain was still there, and it was intense. She didn't remember everything that had happened, just that she was finally being taken seriously. The doctors began their assessment, asking the same questions they'd already asked Pradeep. Everything seemed routine until they found out she'd just given birth 3 weeks ago. That changed everything. Pradeep immediately noticed the shift in their expressions. Without wasting time, they ordered more tests and took blood samples. Something was clearly very wrong. As the hours dragged on, Lily and Pradeep sat in growing tension, waiting for the test results that might finally explain what was wrong. But the doctors kept things vague, never giving a straight answer. Then, in the middle of all this stress, Pradeep's phone buzzed. It was a message from his dad. They couldn't stay with the twins much longer. Although they'd agreed to help, Pradeep's parents had other commitments they couldn't ignore. What was supposed to be a quick hospital visit had turned into something much bigger. With no sign that Lily would be discharged soon, they had no choice. Pradeep had to leave the hospital to care for the babies. Back in her hospital room, Lily tried to distract herself from the pain. She flipped through TV channels, tapped through a few games on her phone, but nothing could take her mind off what was happening. More than anything, she just wanted to be home with her family. Instead, she was stuck in a hospital bed, waiting, hurting, and unsure of what was coming. Her frustration bubbled to the surface. She was scared and confused. Why weren't the doctors telling her anything? Just as she was beginning to lose hope, a nurse came in with an update. "Lily, I'm sorry, but we'll need to keep you overnight for observation." The idea of spending the night away from her twins made Lily's heart sink. She was nervous about leaving Pradeep to care for both babies on his own. Could he manage? What if something went wrong? She didn't wait. She grabbed her phone and called him right away. Pradeep reassured her that he had everything under control. "We're doing fine," he told her gently. Lily wanted to believe him, but her heart still felt uneasy. She considered trying to get out of bed, but her body told her otherwise. Weak and aching, she had no choice but to accept it. She'd have to stay the night. Sleep didn't come easy. The machines beeped constantly, and doctors came in and out checking her vitals. Every time she started to doze off, something pulled her back awake. By morning, Lily felt a bit more settled, though the questions still weighed heavily on her. She missed her family. Thankfully, Pradeep was already on his way, and he brought Mia and Elijah with him since they had no one else to watch them. When Lily held her babies again, it felt like a piece of her was restored, if only for a moment. But the joy didn't last long. 4 doctors stepped into the room and their faces told Lily and Pradeep everything. Something was wrong. "Lily," one doctor began carefully, "we found something on your ultrasound. We're not sure exactly what it is yet." Lily blinked in confusion. "What are you saying? Can it be treated?" she asked, eyes full of worry. The doctor looked at the scan again, then met her gaze. "I'm afraid the only option is immediate surgery." "Surgery?" Pradeep's voice shot through the room, stunned. "But why?" The doctor gently touched Lily's arm. "We don't have time to wait. We need your consent. Now." Lily stared blankly, her thoughts spinning. She turned to Pradeep, hoping for clarity, but he looked just as stunned. Her heart raced as the doctors waited for an answer. She didn't understand exactly why this surgery was necessary, and that made it even scarier. But the medical team stood firm. There wasn't time to keep asking questions. Eventually, Lily nodded. She signed the consent form, trusting the doctors, even though it left her with a deep sense of uncertainty. As soon as she did, the team rushed into action, prepping the operating room. Things moved fast. Nurses came in and began prepping her. Pradeep was asked to wait outside. There was just enough time for a quick hug and a whispered goodbye. Lily tried to stay strong, but part of her couldn't help wondering, was this the last time she'd see her family? As they wheeled her down the corridor, fear settled deep in her chest. The way staff moved urgently through the halls made it clear. This wasn't a routine procedure. Everyone stepped aside as the team passed, clearing a path straight to surgery. Lily's mind raced. No one had told her exactly what was wrong. Was she making the right decision? Her breath caught in her throat. She wanted to call out, to ask someone to stop, but just as she opened her mouth, the anesthesia took over. Everything went black. Meanwhile, Pradeep sat alone in the waiting room with the twins. Their cries echoed in his ears, and he held them close, doing his best to comfort them. But the truth was, he needed comfort too. It all felt surreal, like he was living a version of their life that had taken a wrong turn. And now, all he could do was wait and hope. Just moments before, Pradeep had kissed Lily goodbye, her warmth still fresh on his lips. Now she was somewhere beyond those hospital walls, vulnerable and unconscious in surgery, her life in the hands of strangers. As he rocked the twins, his mind was far from calm. His thoughts spun out of control. What if something went wrong? What if the doctors couldn't fix whatever they'd found? He tried to push the fear away, but it kept coming back stronger. That first hour of waiting felt like a lifetime. The twins cried endlessly, and no matter what he tried, bottles, rocking, silly faces, they wouldn't calm down. It was as if they somehow sensed something was wrong with their mom. Just when Pradeep felt like he might break, his mom walked into the waiting room. "There you are," he breathed out, quickly handing her the babies. Finally, a small break. He began pacing again, sweat beading on his forehead, the weight of everything pressing down on him. Could he really do this alone, if it came to that? To steady himself, he took one baby in his arms, while his mom held the other. It helped, just a bit. The twins seemed to settle a little, soothed by the comfort of familiar voices and touches. The waiting room was quiet, strangely empty. Maybe they were lucky, or maybe no one else wanted to be near crying babies. Pradeep didn't have time to think about it. The sound of footsteps snapped him back to the present. The doctor had returned. Pradeep's heart sank when he saw the doctor's serious face. "Pradeep," the doctor began with a pause that seemed to last forever, "the surgery is taking longer than we expected. Your wife is stable, but there were complications." He continued, his voice steady. "We knew this surgery was risky, but we're doing everything we can to help her recover." Pradeep stood frozen. His legs felt like lead. How was this happening? The doctor's calm words felt out of place. Too normal for a moment that felt anything but. There was nothing to do but wait. Pradeep nodded quietly and sat down again. This was going to be a long, painful wait. Eventually, the doctor returned once more, this time with a more relaxed expression. Pradeep felt it before he heard it. Relief. "She's out of surgery," the doctor said. "She's stable and recovering well." Pradeep felt like he could finally breathe. But when he asked to see her, the answer caught him off guard. "I'm sorry, but it's best you wait until tomorrow or the day after. She needs full rest," the doctor explained. Pradeep blinked, stunned. After all those hours, he'd waited, hoped, worried, and now they wouldn't even let him see her? "With all due respect, doctor," he said firmly, "I have to see her. She's just been through so much, and I know she'll be looking for me." The doctor stood his ground. That's when something snapped in Pradeep. His voice rose, demanding answers, his worry and exhaustion boiling over into anger. He wasn't someone who raised his voice, but this was his wife. Things escalated. The doctor signaled security, and before Pradeep knew it, they were escorting him out. But he wasn't done. He broke free and rushed through the halls, calling Lily's name, determined to find her himself. He didn't know where to go, but he couldn't walk away, not without seeing her. Was she in a coma? Were they hiding something? Panic pushed him forward, yelling her name through the long corridors. Then he heard it, a soft voice, weak but unmistakable. "Pradeep!" His heart jumped. He called back, louder, "Lily!" She answered again, and he followed her voice like a lifeline, closer and closer until he reached a door with a small window. He peeked inside, and there she was, tired, pale, but awake. She was okay. Just as he reached for the door, the security guard caught up and tackled him to the floor. "It's time to leave, sir," the guard said firmly. "You need to leave the property." Defeated and drained, Pradeep didn't resist. He'd seen her. That was enough, for now. He stood up quietly and turned to go. His last image of Lily was one of life. That would have to carry him through the night. Outside, his mother was waiting with the twins. They rode home together in silence, the weight of the day heavy on them both. Neither said a word, but Pradeep could tell what his mother was thinking. If she were the one in that hospital bed, she'd never forgive her husband for leaving her behind. Pradeep's mother saw his actions as desperate, maybe even foolish, but what choice did he really have? With two guards watching him closely, ready to escort him out, his options were limited. Then an idea came to him. If he waited for the night shift, maybe the new staff wouldn't recognize him. It was risky, but it was all he had. But the twins were already fast asleep. He couldn't take them with him. That meant asking his mother for yet another favor. A tough ask, considering how the day had gone. He knew she wouldn't forget this anytime soon. Still, he had to try. Pradeep asked her to stay with the babies just one more night. She said no at first, tired and frustrated, but after a bit of pleading, she gave in. "This is the last time. Understand?" she warned. Pradeep nodded. She wasn't the type to enjoy babysitting, but she understood how much this meant to him. As midnight approached, Pradeep waited for the hospital shift change, hoping the security staff had switched out too. If they hadn't, his plan would fall apart fast. At exactly 12, he slipped out of the house and headed for the hospital. When he arrived, the emergency room was as busy as ever. That helped. Acting like he belonged, Pradeep blended in with the crowd, avoiding eye contact, keeping his head down. Every step brought him closer to Lily's room. He remembered exactly where it was. Everything went surprisingly smoothly. No one stopped him. He didn't even spot a single security guard. It felt too easy, and that made him a little uneasy. Still, he kept moving. But when he reached Lily's room, his stomach dropped. The bed was empty. She was gone. Panic crept in, but he wasn't about to give up now. He began searching quietly, peeking into room after room, hoping to stay unnoticed. Room by room, no sign. Until finally, after what felt like forever, he saw her, sleeping peacefully in a different room. Relief washed over him. He walked in, leaned down, and gently kissed her forehead. Then he took a seat at her bedside, holding her hand as he watched her rest. Before long, the stress caught up with him, and he drifted off to sleep beside her. For a little while, everything was still. He could breathe again. It was quiet. It was safe. But it didn't last. Just a few hours later, a nurse entered the room and gasped at the sight of him. It was 5 in the morning. "Sir, you're not supposed to be here," she said, startled. Pradeep sat up, quickly explaining everything, how much he'd been through, why he needed to see his wife. His words came from the heart. The nurse hesitated, then nodded. "Okay, just stay quiet and don't cause trouble," she whispered. It was against the rules, but she couldn't turn him away. Pradeep was deeply grateful. He would never forget her kindness. He settled back in his chair and kept his eyes on Lily. She looked peaceful, more relaxed than he'd seen her in weeks. She deserved this rest, after all the sleepless nights and all she'd been through. A few hours later, the doctors arrived. They were surprised but not entirely shocked to find Pradeep still there. One of them smiled slightly. "I had a feeling you'd stay." Then came the news. They gently woke Lily, who smiled weakly when she saw Pradeep by her side. She squeezed his hand. Even with her strength not fully back, that small gesture said everything. "Well, Lily," the doctor began, trying to soften the moment, "that was quite the journey, huh?" He gave a little laugh, but Pradeep didn't smile. He just waited, bracing for what was coming. The doctor's voice shifted. "There were some complications during surgery. Your heart stopped. Twice. We had to use a defibrillator. That might explain some soreness." Pradeep's heart stopped. "What?" he shouted, stunned. He couldn't believe no one had told him. The doctor continued calmly. "The root of your illness was a large mass on your ovaries. To save your life, we had to remove them." Tears welled up in Lily's eyes. The loss hit her hard. She was grateful for her twins, but this was still a painful truth. The doctor offered quiet reassurance. "The surgery saved your life. That's what matters most." Lily nodded slowly. It wasn't easy to accept, but deep down she knew he was right. The whole experience had been overwhelming for both of them. Though Lily made a full recovery, the emotional impact lingered. It took time for her to come to terms with everything, physically and mentally. But eventually she did. Together, Lily and Pradeep moved forward. They focused on raising their children with all the love and energy they had. And through it all, they held on to the biggest lesson: never take life, or each other, for granted. Grateful for the care Lily received, they began giving back. They started fundraising and organizing events to support the hospital that had helped save her. They wanted to make sure others got the same chance they had. If this story moved you, please like the video, share it with someone who might need it, and subscribe for more true inspiring stories.